Okay, so now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of private investigation work. Now we're going to review for lesson number 3 the most popular types of investigation that you may see, either if you're working under somebody else's license or if you get your own license and start doing the work. You create a website and you put some information on the website, contact information. You're going to start getting phone calls from people that want these types of cases. So here is the most common types of private investigations. So I'm going to follow along the book. If you've read the book, this is merely just a review. The most common type is a domestic relationship type of investigation. And this can be anything the client wants. Most commonly, though, it's surveillance. They want to know where that person is going and who that person is hanging out with. Merely, most times because they suspect that person is cheating. This is pretty straightforward. This is kind of like the entry-level type of investigation you'll have. And you'll camp out somewhere in the person's neighborhood, wait for them to leave, and follow them and see where they go. With technology, this has become a lot easier than it used to be because you can track somebody using electronic devices. A lot of spouses do this on their own without contacting a private investigator. However, some of them contact and say, hey, what devices are out there? So if you're curious, go to spybase.com. Now, this is a company that Investiguide has an agreement with, and we have a coupon code, which is in the lesson, where you can buy stuff at a reduced rate if you use our coupon code. They have a lot of devices on their GPS technology. Again, I would warn you to review your state's licensing before you start using that stuff. However, the domestic matrimonial investigation is the most common case you're going to get. There's retail undercover investigations that entry-level private investigations are commonly hired for. And what they do is a company will hire you to go work in a warehouse and watch what's going on in the warehouse. You know, I personally was hired one time to work in it was a food packing place in Massachusetts, and they thought during the breaks the employees were going out and smoking marijuana. And that was a liability for the company because they were using heavy machinery and there were a lot of accidents and they were trying to curb accidents. So that was kind of an entry-level position that I had one time. But that's undercover investigations. Missing persons. This is one of my personal favorites. I like finding missing people. You have to be careful, though, when you actually find the person. And there's a lot of screening that we need to do before we take on a missing persons case. You have to make sure that the person looking for the other person is not doing it for revenge, not doing it for any ill purpose. And I think a lot of private investigators get in trouble because they find somebody and then the client will violate a restraining order or something like that. So you got to be kind of careful in kind of screening these people before you do missing persons case. However, most times what I do is if I'm hired to find somebody, when I find that person, I tell them that my client, Joe Blow, hired me to find you. Is it okay that I give them your contact information? A lot of times they'll say, no, that guy's a nut. Don't give him my personal information. And that's perfectly fine. Fine. I already took in my retainer. I've already gotten paid from the client. So either way, I'm getting paid. And you just tell the client, sorry, they said, do not release my personal information. Background investigations. This is also another tricky area because there's a lot of privacy laws that have come up in the last couple of years to protect consumers from their identities being stolen. However, most times if you get a call, it'll be from a landlord who just kind of wants to make sure this guy isn't a sex offender or something like that. And you'll know where to look after we get through this course. You'll know how to find out this information. Background investigation, also employment too. A lot of small businesses, they don't want to subscribe to these big online companies, so they'll call you and say, listen, this guy's going to be driving a van. Can you just make sure he has a license? Yeah, no problem. We can do that. Juvenile cases. This is very common in terms of missing persons. A lot of times juveniles will run away. You get runaway juveniles. You get runaway people you get a lot of juveniles doing, experimenting with drugs, and the parents will actually hire a private investigator to find out what kind of stuff they're into. And sometimes that can be a social media dive where you look in to see what they're posting and stuff like that, or it could be a surveillance type situation. Industrial investigation is very common to the undercover investigations. You just kind of want to find out information about the company or the employees. Criminal investigations. This is something I did a lot a couple of years ago, and I made a lot of good money doing it, especially with CPCS cases, which is indigent defendants who get appointed an attorney by the court. Those attorneys like private investigators because they go out and find witnesses that the police didn't find. Police don't report every single witness on their report, so it's the private investigator's job to go out and find witnesses that the police may have missed. So criminal investigations are a lot of fun because a lot of times it's just finding missing people, finding witnesses, contacting witnesses, and interviewing witnesses. That's a lot of fun too. You sit a witness down and you say, okay, listen, tell me everything you know about this case. Insurance investigations. This is often surveillance. You want to find out if they're on workman's comp, if they're faking a back injury. This is a very entry-level type stuff, very similar to the domestic stuff, but insurance stuff is a lot of fun because 9 times out of 10, they don't know they're being followed. Whereas a domestic investigation, if you're surveilling them, they know they're doing something wrong. So they're constantly on the lookout. Insurance cheaters, they don't really know they're being followed. So those are a lot of fun. Taking witness statements. Sometimes this is very common with criminal investigations where you go and you just find the witness and you interview them. Hey, listen, what did you see? What did you hear? Bug sweeps, I would keep away from that only because that's very highly technical stuff and you don't want to tell somebody there's no bug in their room and then come to find out there was a camera up in the ceiling if you missed something. Auto repossession. This one's great money maker for private investigators because we can find information that most people can't find. And so if somebody, this is common with the Uber drivers and Lyft drivers, they get cars from rental car companies and then they don't return them. So the rental car companies will reach out to private investigators to try and find a stolen rental car. It was just basically a rental car that just wasn't returned. Civil damage suits. These are fun because you're just going and you're interviewing witnesses. This is like kind of a slip and fall type of situation where somebody falls into a store and you go and you document what you see and what you hear. Yeah, there's damage to the floor. He tripped over that wasn't marked appropriately. Caregiver abuse. This is a very common one where there's a caregiver and they're mistreating an elderly person. They're not giving them the medication. The elderly person slipped and fell because of the caregiver was not paying attention. This can be anything. This can be surveillance. This can be witness interviews. This can be just taking pictures of the location. But at the end of the day, you are at the whim of the client, what the client wants you to find. And that's how I start every interview with the client off is, what is it at the end of this investigation? What is it that you want to know? And then they'll usually say, well, I want to know if my mother was abused in the nursing home. Oh, okay, I can figure that out, no problem. But at the end of the day, that's what you want to do. So read this chapter. This is lesson number 3. There's a lot of really good information, but it's it's just kind of a review of the most common types. There's going to be many lessons that dive deep into each one of these issues. All right, so do the practical exercise, and we'll see you at the next lesson.